So here's our next unit, chapter 7. Notice the title. It's Jewish and Early Christian Art. That's interesting because it's different than what you'll see in later chapters. Most of those chapters will be titled by their time period. Art in the 1300s, for example. And so this chapter is complicated because you have a lot going on. You're going to start with a historical context where you're in the Roman Empire in its later phases, but you're learning about two religions that are becoming more prominent in that late Roman Empire: Judaism and Christianity. So the art that we're looking at in this chapter is religious art made at a time when the culture and religion of the Roman Empire is going through radical transformation. Now, I want to orient you a little bit to the textbook. Some interesting features that I want you to take the time to look at, as it will help you feel grounded and organized in your learning. In your textbook, every new chapter begins with a single artwork that the authors have selected to kind of open the door onto the subject matter. In this case, they're showing you an artwork right here. The artwork in its caption is described as being near Rome, made in the late 4th century. And up here where they say figure 7-1, chapter 7, illustration number 1, they're giving you a title, the Cubiculum of Leonis, Catacomb of Commedia. So the cubiculum is an ancient Roman word for room. And you have the room of this person, Leonis, in a catacomb, a underground burial chamber that's been painted with fresco, which is a wall painting. Fresco is from the Italian word for open air, for fresh air. It's when the paint is applied directly to the plaster. And I want you to pay close attention to how they introduce and analyze this artwork. They start with the story that's depicted, the story of St. Peter right here, and a miracle that's recounted of Peter converting others to Christianity, needing water to baptize, not having it, and striking a rock and getting the water. So they want you to think about how the artist is enacting a story with the action of the hand here and the rod striking the rock, the sense of this person, Peter, turning to look at you as if it's in the moment. And they contrast that with this painting on the ceiling, which depicts Jesus Christ, and they note the Greek letters Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, so the alphabet, the Greek alphabet, the A and the Z, you could say. The beginning and the end of things is how these religious viewers would have understood the image here of Jesus Christ. And they want you to notice that he is actually very still, frontal, stable, symmetrical, unlike Peter, full of action and turning. They're getting you to think about how this is a more narrative artwork and this is a more iconic artwork. As you proceed through the chapters, you'll notice that once you get that first introductory image, the textbook writers give you a kind of a historical portrait about the late Roman world. And in this case, they need to also introduce you to Judaism and Christianity. So you've got a lot going on in terms of information to absorb in this first chapter. You're going to get a feel for what Rome was like, get some basic knowledge of its political and cultural structures, and then you need to get some basic knowledge of Judaism and Christianity. Because what's happening is those religions are going to expand and basically change from being underground minority religions to becoming a dominant religion. for Christianity, that is. So read carefully here how they're explaining to you the religious character of Judaism, of Christianity. And briefly they mention Islam, because all three are three branches of one tree. All three are what we would call the sister religions of that make up the Abrahamic monotheisms. And so they're going to go on and talk a little bit about how Judaism and Christianity existed in a Roman Empire that had lots of other religious ideas circulating. And the other thing I want you to point out to you finally is to start to get a sense of the maps that are provided as supports for you for imagining your way back into the historical world we're studying. Here you've got a map showing the Roman Empire around 300, the pink tracing the vast territory that the Romans controlled. You'll notice that the pink includes, of course, the boot of Italy, where the capital Rome is, their historic homeland, but it also extends across the Adriatic Sea into what was then called Illyria, now the Balkans, down into Macedonia and Greece. So the Romans had conquered the great glorious culture of ancient Greece and absorbed that culture into their own. It includes what is today known as Turkey, important parts of the Middle East, what we today call the Middle East, so Syria, and then what today would be called Palestine and Israel, and moving down into Egypt. The Romans were very proud to have conquered the glorious Nile River Valley, the fertile and culturally magnificent land of the pharaohs, and their empire, their imperial control goes across North Africa and then not only into Spain and what is today France and part of Germany, but up into Britain. They called the Mediterranean Nostro Mare, our sea, because they really did control the entire circumference of the Mediterranean. They were the political superpower of their time. Get to know the map so you really have a sense of where each chapter is locating you. And then as you go through the chapter, start by taking the time to look at the artworks. That'll help you ground yourself in the reading to see how, okay, here's an artwork. You're going to see a Jewish artwork from a house synagogue in today's Syria. And it is also a wall painting, like the catacomb we started with. Ask yourself as you read how the cultural historical information is helping you to see more, understand more about the artwork. And then they'll be moving to the early Christian art and give you a brief introduction to key Christian ritual elements, theological elements. And you're going to see that the rest of the art that you study in this chapter will be, with very few exceptions, Christian art. What you're going to be exploring is how Christians in Rome took Roman ways of making art and used them for Christian subject matter. A process that's called syncretism, a kind of a synthetic process, a blending of an older art form with new ideas. So I want you to read through the chapter focusing on the art and the architecture, and we'll get a chance to then move to our discussion process.